Is it desirable to be a coach for professional tennis players and therefore a dream job? I share my opinion on that in this video. First, a few updates on the latest events. Yuri Rodionov started his preseason this week. After a week off, which he spent in Vienna and with his newly discovered love of golf, he returned to the tennis court. This year, the tournaments in Australia will start later, so there will be a little more time to prepare, and it will also be possible to enjoy a stress-free Christmas time at home. Sebastian Sorga also returned to Vienna in the middle of the week. He has already completed his first fitness block, and now it's time to work out further details on the court. Slava Belinsky must continue to wait for his wrist to fully recover. In my observations, more and more former players have little motivation to pursue a career as a coach for professional tennis players after their playing days are over. On the other hand, it is of course understandable that after many years of traveling and the associated restrictions on social life, other priorities come to the foreground. But of course, there are also many coaches who do not come from their own professional careers and are very successful in this field of coaching. I even think that this is an advantage in terms of motivation and willingness to travel and the associated sacrifices. The coaching I am referring to here is full-time coaching, meaning that the players are not only trained by a coach at the base, but the coach is also willing to accompany the players to tournaments. Here we can roughly distinguish between three groups: the future level, the challenger level, and the ATP or WTA tour. At the future level, coaches rarely travel with just one player as their financial situation simply does not allow it. The truth is that the majority of players on the future tour travel without a coach anyway. This means that as a coach on the future tour, you first have to be prepared to make do with less financially. On the other hand, the workload is also greater because you usually have to look after two or more players. There's often a difference when coaching women. Even at the future level, you usually see individual coaching, although many women at the futures also travel alone. The comfort factor at most future tournaments is also limited. The organizer's budget is usually very tight, and the quality of the courts, balls, and practice times requires, let's say positively, flexibility. Accommodation must also be in line with the player's budget, which means that star-rated hotels are not an option in most cases. As a coach, you therefore need to bring a lot of enthusiasm to the table and should not expect luxury or adequate financial compensation in relation to the effort involved. The conditions on the Challenger Tour are a little easier. Fewer players at the tournaments and sufficient practice opportunities, new balls during practice, better hotels, and better overall infrastructure with gyms, players' lounges, and more make everyday life easier. At Challenger tournaments, you usually see coaches with the players, and individual coaching is much more common. However, payment for coaches is still a big issue here too. If you're not ranked in the top 230 and can therefore participate in the Grand Slam qualification tournaments, the financial situation is still very tight. In Challenger tournaments, the prize money for players is very modest, and unless you reach at least the final, it is difficult to make a profit with a coach. Unless that the coach is willing to share a room with the player as hospitality for one room for a certain amount of nights is already provided at challenger tournaments. Participating in the qualification of Grand Slams guarantees at least $60,000 net per year, even without winning a match, and that helps, of course. That's why the battle to get into this position is the first major hurdle in professional sport. The highest level is the ATP or WTA Tour, which is associated with players in the top 100. Only at this level it is possible for players to pay coaches according to the amount of work they do. The conditions at these tournaments are certainly of a high standard. There's great interest from the public. The hotels are mostly top hotels, and everything from transportation service to players' restaurants and leisure activities is provided. The number of weeks a coach has to travel is roughly the same at all levels. For futures, travel is mostly limited to closer regions for cost reasons, while challengers involve a few more trips, and at the highest level it is constant travel around the world. On average, you are on the road for at least 26 weeks a year, which means half a year. It is difficult to maintain a healthy private life alongside this profession, and therefore this lifestyle can certainly be described as a lonely one. That's why I think that being a coach in the professional arena involves a lot of sacrifice and should therefore be viewed more as a passion. I'll go into more detail in one of my next videos. Thank you for your interest and see you in the next video.